The keto diet, I'm not a fan of at all for hair health because they're focusing on just those fats and protein. You're not getting those vitamins and minerals that you get in antioxidants.
Julie Olson is a triple certified functional medicine nutritionist. She is a certified nutritionist, board certified in holistic nutrition, and a certified gluten-free practitioner, recognized as a top 20 expert in health and wellness space for 2023 by the Los Angeles Tribune magazine. Host of the Healthy Body, Healthy Hair, The Truth About Hair Loss Summit, winner of the PubCon's publishing and publicity book writing contest, and creator of the Healthy Hair Fix 5R protocol. Julie's mission is to help women worldwide restore their health, hope, and hair naturally so they look and feel their absolute best.
We need the essential and branched chain amino acids from protein that comes from animal protein. So someone on a vegan or vegetarian diet is not going to have those essential and branched chain amino acids that are really vital for hair growth. I would say that's really important, but it also...
Hi, my name is Chris Burris. I'm a longevity expert and the chief scientist at a lab focused on a longevity molecule. My primary focus is to help people live longer and better lives with science. Make sure to subscribe and share so you and your friends can live longer and better. Well, actually, so you and your friends can live beyond the norms. Hi, and welcome to the next talk on the Uncovering the Secrets of Longevity, Live Beyond the Norms Health Summit, Hair Loss. So I found on PubMed a study that shows 43% of men are concerned that hair loss is also losing an important part of personal attractiveness, with as many as 21% of men reporting feelings of depression. With women, 96% believe that hair loss may impact them on meeting a partner, with 34% saying that losing hair leaves them feeling depressed. Hair loss is associated with aging, and this summit is about aging better and longer. So our next speaker is here to offer alternative ways to address your hair loss, be it potential or actual. Julie Olson is a triple certified functional medicine nutritionist. So she is a certified nutritionist, board certified in holistic nutrition, and a certified gluten-free practitioner, recognized as a top 20 expert in health and wellness space for 2023 by the Los Angeles Tribune magazine. Host of the Healthy Body, Healthy Hair, The Truth About Hair Loss Summit, winner of the PubCon's publishing and publicity book writing contest, that's just really cool, and creator of the Healthy Hair Fix 5R protocol. Julie's mission is to help women worldwide restore their health, hope, and hair naturally so they look and feel their absolute best. Julie, thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thank you, Chris. Thank you so much for having me.
So your focus originally wasn't nutrition and health. You actually had a role, and I kind of got on LinkedIn. You were doing lots of research. And what pushed you in the direction of health, and how did that kind of extensive time doing research help you when you started in health, and probably is even still helping you today?
That's a really great question. And the catalyst was, I was a media research analyst at Warner Brothers for syndicated television. And I got this call that my mother had stage 3 breast cancer and was going into emergency surgery the next day. And so within weeks, it was my dream job and I loved it, but I moved back to my hometown of Denver to support her. And I worked in television there as a research analyst. But I got disenchanted with the business in Denver, coming from a major studio, and also really more interested in why she got so sick. And in that whole transition, I realized I was putting blinders on my own health. And that's when my hair started falling out in literally clumps. And I just quit the whole media gig research, and I dove headfirst into functional medicine and nutrition. And so, yeah, I'm a research geek. I always have been, and it's really helped me dive into this delicate subject, especially for women. So that's how I got started.
Yeah, so hair falling out in clumps. This probably resonated with like 96 women reporting that it could impact meeting a partner. 34% saying that it kind of leaves feelings of depression. So I can imagine this is like, okay, clumps. Did you kind of attribute it to stress in that research job, or you were just like, I don't even know what's going on. I'm going to go figure this out.
Yeah, I was dismissed. I went to multiple practitioners and they just dismissed me and, oh, it'll come back. I don't know what to do. Don't worry about it. And that just wasn't an answer for me. And I, at the same time, I was really interested in why my mother got so sick, and come to find out, I was really a hot mess, and I was living the fast lifestyle out when I worked for Warner Brothers on in Los Angeles, and I say it's a gift because it's not a disease, but
Mm.
honestly, and maybe but women, when your hair's falling out, you actually, in my case, paid attention to my health, whereas I probably wouldn't have. So I
Mm.
call it a gift to look
Uh,
deeper and figure out what's wrong, because there's something out of balance in your body if your hair is falling out. It's not a lack of Rogaine or a certain shampoo or something, you know?
Well, I always, so one of the testimonials with our product is improvements in hair and nails. And I always like my kind of surface explanation is when you have other, when you physically, when your body has other health considerations, nails and hair are just like, they're an attractiveness quotient, and they're less like when you're fighting for survival, they're less important. And then when you get those things straightened out, then the body's like, well, let's go back to attractiveness because, that's now important again.
Right.
So you're a health practitioner focused on results. What's one of your proudest cases?
Recently, Sarah D, who had been to multiple practitioners, same as me, and her hair was falling out, and we finally figured out what it was. There's usually more than one root cause, but and her hair was growing. But before, when I worked for a functional medicine practice, I just want to throw this in. A gal came in who had Crohn's, and actually, she was so great though. She followed everything I recommended, and we put her Crohn's into remission. And it was so remarkable. It changed her life. She lost weight. Her face cleared up. I mean, her whole life changed. And everyone, she was a school teacher, and everyone just raved about all the changes. And so much that her daughter decided to become a nutritionist. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so I would throw that into a proudest category. That's pretty phenomenal. So we're talking about hair loss. What are the typical key causes of hair loss?
Well, there's over 50 causes, and I mean, I can ramble off. Dysbiosis, not absorbing nutrients, mast cell activation, heavy metals. I mean, the list, it goes on and on, but I put it into 4 functional categories,
Mm.
and that's digestive, nutrition per se, inflammation, hormonal, and stress induced. Yeah, there's so many causes of hair. I mean, even and so, and they're, again, but they all go into that category, and there's even overlap within that category. Those 4 functional categories.
So it's digestive, it's inflammation, it's hormonal, and stress. Like those are the
Stress
key,
induced.
and they can be broken down into 50. I think that was
Right.
listed. You did a poster, a scientific poster at an event, and I think you had kind of the list of 50 on there, which is
Right.
like overwhelming in the poster. Like, oh, there's ways to lose and then also fix hair. That's pretty phenomenal.
Sure.
What are the differences between men and women? Like, so we're all, men and women are going to have digestive, they're going to have inflammation, they're going to have hormonal, although there may be some more extreme swings with women, and they're going to have stress. Like, what is kind of the fundamental difference between men and women in hair loss?
That's a really good question. It's more aesthetic and hormonal. So with men, they tend to get this, what's called androgenetic alopecia, commonly known as male pattern baldness, which follows a distinct pattern with the receding hairline, balding at the crown, It starts at the temples and then progresses to the top of the head, forming like an M shape.
Mm-hmm.
And elevated DHT, dihydrotestosterone, really plays a significant role there. And so do genetics, more so than women per se. And they also have more of the scarring of the hair follicle, the miniaturization of follicles that leads to the scarring. That's why you see those shiny scalps. That's scarring of the hair follicle.
Mm-hmm.
And the onset is usually earlier than women. And also it's also you see like the horseshoe pattern, right? With male pattern hair loss. But with females, it's more diffuse thinning, right? Even female pattern hair loss is just diffuse thinning all over the scalp, and it's not really the baldness and the scarring. And it's usually later. It can be brought on at pregnancy or childbirth, but especially menopause and conditions like PCOS that contribute to that diffuse hair thinning. And also as we age, I mean, in menopause, we lose so much estrogen and progesterone, which we need, and it really helps speed up the hair loss. So those are the main differences. I mean, of course, like you said earlier, there's those 4 functional categories that play a role with both male and females. But male pattern hair loss, the scarring, when it gets to that point, it really is hard to reverse. Whereas females, it's more diffuse hair loss, where luckily, because, it's really not accepted for women to have as much as men to have the baldness. I mean, it's not as in fashion as it is with men. I mean, some women really wear baldness really well. So
that was one of the questions I was going to ask, because you said of the scarring with the men. And so you're saying that a woman who's experiencing, say, a lot of thinning is in a better position to bring that back than a man who has experienced a lot of thinning.
Yes.
Given the statistics that I started off with, right? Like that's it's almost like there's a balance in the universe, right? Where it's more traumatizing to women, and I think that seems to be the case. That's kind of my impression, and that's what the data says. And then it's also more reversible, so that's pretty cool. How do you see addressing hair loss really aligned with longevity? Right, we're a longevity summit, so. One, like, how do we live beyond the norms? Hey, let's keep our hair, even if genetically we're not predisposed to, or, if our old lifestyles didn't sort it out. But how do you see hair loss aligned with longevity?
Well, it really is a biomarker of aging. I mean, it is influenced by like a complexity, interplay of hormonal, environmental factors or dietary factors. And it really does give a indication of someone's health status. For instance, my grandmother, I like to talk about her sometime in the summit, but she lived to 104, a full head of hair, and on no medications. But I mean, so that's an indication, and just underlying health conditions that are not addressed. And then people, as they get older, tend to be on a lot of medications. And any medication, as you know, depletes certain nutrients. And then just the stress and age-related diseases that are not getting inflammation in check are going to impact your hair health, and which also contribute to longevity. And
I think we should come back to your grandma at some point.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
The psychosocial impact and lifestyle interventions and so forth all play a role here as far as hair loss aligned with longevity. People become less mobile. They're, a lot of sedentary people as they age. They're isolating themselves. And that all plays a role. I mean, there's been studies done on isolation that it's as bad as smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day or being diabetic or an alcoholic. It just plays havoc with your health. And what we do at COVID, we isolated people. And going into the stress part of hair loss, that's what the COVID shed was considered a stress-induced hair loss. They called it the chronic telogen effluvium. And so it was a stress-induced type of hair loss that's easier to get back, but a lot of older people and people that were not as healthy were more prone to have that COVID shed. And it hit women really hard, actually.
Yeah. So when you talk about the COVID shed and stress, right? Like we certainly had the environmental stress factors. But then if you ended up with COVID or even, took, got a COVID vaccination, this is known to cause some, in some cases, serious inflammation, right? So would you say that hair loss associated with inflammation or any one of these, let's just say it's digestive, inflammation, hormonal, and stresses, hair loss due to any one of those more easily repaired versus the others, or do they all kind of fit in the same area of like if you can fix each one of these 4 things?
You can fix each one of those 4 things as long as you don't get to the point where you have scarring of the hair follicle. And the thing with stress-induced hair loss, it goes back to the hair growth cycles. So there's 3 main growth cycles. There's the anagen phase that lasts about 2 to 7 years. And that's the active hair growth phase where the cells and the hair will divide and produce new hair. And that's the percent of hair in the anagen phase is about 85 to 90%. And then the second phase is the catagen phase. That's more the transition phase. And that can last about 10 days. And that's when the hair follicle actually shrinks and the lower part's destroyed and the hair stops growing, but it has not yet shed. And this is about 1 to 2%. And then the telogen phase is a resting phase. And that's happens for about 3 months, usually in the springtime, where we shed more, where we grow more hair for the winter. I mean, seriously, it's like mammals. But the telogen phase is where when you have stress-induced hair loss, it pops you prematurely into that telogen phase. That's why they call a type of hair loss telogen effluvium, because it's just skipped the other growth phases and boom, pops you into the telogen phase. Hence, back to the COVID shed, they call it the chronic telogen effluvium. Does that make sense?
Yeah. All right. So so it's antigen, catagen, and telogen, right? Did I get that pronunciation right?
Antigen, catagen, and telogen, right?
Excellent. So, what is there anyone that's more important if you think about digestive, inflammation, hormonal stress? They can all be fixed. Is there anyone like this we want to fix first if you're kind of addressing hair loss?
Well, I would say your digestion, because if you're not digesting your nutrients, well, first of all, think about it, because our nutrients first go to our vital organs to keep us alive, and we're just getting anything else for our hair, skin, and nails. So if we're not even getting that nutrient base, then I would say that's really important. But it also goes into stress, because if you're constantly on the fight or flight, you're constantly stressed out, it's really hard to digest and absorb your nutrients. And people don't realize there's a newly discovered microbiome. It's the scalp hair follicle microbiome, right? And so it requires an enormous amount of energy in the form of nutrients, but also ATP, mitochondria, Krebs cycle. And so no wonder so many people are losing hair. I mean, it's practically become an epidemic, not only with longevity, but just because it's keeping pace with chronic disease and stress worldwide.
Yeah, that makes sense. Are there any specific, so let's talk about nutrition for anything specific dietary recommendations to support hair health, and maybe in the context of longevity?
Well, first and foremost is protein, because protein is really what our hair is made out of. They call it keratin, but we need the essential and branched chain amino acids from protein that comes from animal protein. So someone on a vegan or vegetarian diet is not going to have those essential and branched chain amino acids that are really vital for hair growth and hair health. And then also for longevity, I mean, any clients I've worked with, I've been doing this 12 years, most people are not getting enough protein throughout the day. They need at least 20 grams per meal. And I say like the size of the palm of your hand,
Mm-hmm.
and, chicken, fish, whatever, that's good 20 grams. And, I often give them a protein chart just to make sure they're getting that protein throughout the day. I mean, a minimum of 60 grams a day, but someone that's more active needs more. And it also helps balance your blood sugar. And protein has so many beneficial things for your health that it can really not only help with hair health, but longevity.
Yeah, I think, and I've recently kind of upped my protein intake, just kind of following one particular influencer. It's actually in the business space, and I kind of noticed immediately, being able to hold more muscle just immediately. And I was certainly not a low protein eater. Like, it was usually my focus. If I had protein or carb options, then I was eating protein, and I kind of dramatically increased it from there. And it's been very beneficial in my opinion. So that's kind of digestion, nutrition, or would you break those separately? Maybe there's digestive issues that we need to take care of that nutrition doesn't necessarily manage, or should we kind of move into talking about inflammation?
Well, let me just first mention some other important hair nutrients, top hair nutrients. So we've got vitamin A, vitamin D, the B vitamins, especially niacin, like the fleshy niacin can really help with hair growth. Iron, essential fatty acids, not only omega-3s, but healthy omega-6s like evening primrose oil, borage oil to help balance out that. Some mineral, selenium, manganese. Manganese deficiencies can really slow hair growth. But some others that are common and needed for hair, collagen, like get a good collagen protein powder. There's some now made with peptides, but horsetail extract, rosemary, curcumin, ginkgo, grapeseed extract, green tea. And then to help balance out the DHT, to help it not get so elevated, you have to balance out the 5A reductase, and you can do that with saw pimento, nettle root, pygeum, and those also help with any mast cell activation that might be going on. MSM, I mean, the list is pretty long, but I also don't think I even mentioned vitamin E, vitamin A, and antioxidants. We need those antioxidants. That's why the keto diet, I'm not a fan of at all for hair health, because they're focusing on just those fats and protein. You're not getting those vitamins and minerals that you get in antioxidants.
Hey, super quick break from the podcast. Hopefully you're loving it. This is a way you can support the podcast and take advantage of a great offer. We're offering 50% off of one of our MCT bottles. MCT is an amazing oil. Add the ESS 60 molecule to it. It's even more amazing. All you got to do is leave a review on iTunes, send us a notification that you've left that review. We'll get you a coupon code that'll get you 50% off of our MCT oil and free shipping. Back to the podcast. maybe if they added organ meat to the keto,
Oh,
right?
I
Because I
love.
literally, and in fact, I had two interviews earlier today, and I shared on the first one was with Natalie Nidam, who's amazing, and it was because of me preparing for that interview. She mentioned the value of organ meats, and so last night I had my first ground beef with, I don't know, 5% heart and 7% liver in it. So maybe that could help support for for people who are
That's
doing
like
keto diet.
the organ meats is the number one food for hair health. Number one, that hands down. And I'd say the next one would be like sardines, but organ meats. And I don't know if you're interviewing. He was on my summit, but he makes pluck seasoning. It's made out of organ meats, so that's a
Mm.
really nice hack. You just put it on your food.
Yeah, on all of your food.
Yeah.
That, so you mentioned a lot of things, right? Vitamin A, B, D, E, and B, kind of niacin. That flushes. I'm okay with it, but I can understand why a lot of people might not be okay. Are any of these like topicals, or these are just kind of supplements, or be looking for the right, whether it's organ meat or vegetables, to kind of consume these?
To consume these, I'm not big on topicals. That's not my forte. Yeah, to consume them, and going back to the niacin, the flushing type helps dilate capillaries, and also helps break down the buildup of calcium and DHT that can otherwise inhibit, hair growth.
So the flush is good.
Yeah, the
It's
flush is good. I know it is kind of annoying, but it can really help. And that's why, people need to move. They need those nutrients with their scalp. Stand on your head or do a down dog or get moving. You need that.
yeah, blood flow
Blood flow.
paramount.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Okay, so that's the kind of the landscape on digestive and nutrition. How about inflammation? How are we? We got to address number two is inflammation.
Right. So inflammation, a good anti-inflammatory food plan. I don't like to say diet, but food choices. So you want to eliminate eliminate the top food allergens, such as, unfortunately, is eggs, soy, corn, peanuts, shellfish. And then you want to eliminate the nightshades, which is tomatoes, potatoes, eggplants. Those all can cause inflammation, especially if you already have it. You want to get your inflammation markers checked, like C-reactive protein, and there's some others I check for that are not commonly checked. But also adequate hydration can really help with your inflammation. Drinking half your body weight in ounces of water, good, clean, pure water every day. And, like I mentioned before, curcumin, those essential fatty acids, they can really help dampen the inflammation. And even CBD, some really good, clean CBD can help, because we have endocannabinoid systems throughout our entire body. And that's a really, actually pretty quick way to help modulate that inflammation. That is a key functional root cause of hair loss. And every disease, longevity. I mean, if you got inflammation going on, it's,
It's not good.
it's it's not good at all.
Excellent. So, you mentioned tests like CRP is one of the things. I imagine in your practice, as somebody's coming with hair loss, is there a battery of tests that you start off with, or are there like one or two or some number of tests that you're like, hey, I really need these to kind of get some sort of assessment?
It's individualized. It really is individualized, but there are some that are more favorable than others. So especially a stool test to see what's going on in their gut, if they're absorbing or not. It's going to look at H. pylori. It looks at so many different markers, the good and the bad bacteria, if they have parasites. I mean, that's a really, really good one. A nutrient status, whether you're depleted in nutrients or you have a surplus, looking at both your macro and your micronutrients, essential fatty acids, antioxidants, oxidative stress, detox pathways, methylation, your hormones, looking at everything from a whole thyroid panel, iron panel, your insulin, uh, your just testosterone, your DHT, even things like quinolinic acid. Is that elevated? I can look at that through an organic acids test. Organic acids tests are great. It's looking at your metabolites through your urine, but there's a lot of valuable information in there to see if you have high oxalates. If you have mold, you need to see, maybe they had heavy metals, maybe they have mercury fillings still. Do they have a toxic burden? Do they have mast cell activation? We do genetic testing too, and we really look at the metabolic genes that you can't change your genes, but you can re-express your metabolic genes, but you have to have everything else in order too, in order to make that happen. So yeah, it goes back to the research. I love doing labs. It's like opening a present. When I get someone's lab results, I'm so excited to see them.
You're like, let me dig in and see, what do we have here?
Yeah. It's like a birthday present to me.
That's pretty awesome. Maybe that goes back to the research, right? Like, you just love to dig into the data and kind of understand it and draw conclusions that you can, give back to your clients. You did mention just now, like, testosterone. Next on the list is hormonal. Like, what do you tend to address here? What are you looking at? What is going to positively impact hair loss?
A lot, but people don't realize that our hormones are all created in our gut. So I start with the gut. Yeah, I want to see what's going on with their hormones. But again, that's case by case. There are, I do want to look at some of those markers at the beginning, but I might go further. I'll first probably address them with a blood test, but then I might do a Dutch test to look at, hormones in more detail, depending on that particular person. Again, there's no one size fits all here.
And then you're looking at addressing potentially stress, right? So kind of, and that could come in the form of a questionnaire, right? Like, how is your stress? not to be like, I guess this is a message that's coming to me through through all the interviews that I've done for the summit. But the medical community tends to be like, well, I don't see anything abnormal from my whatever heart expertise, kidney expertise, liver expertise. So you just are probably stressed. You should figure out how to manage your stress. We don't want to fall into that category. But what are you looking at in regard to stress?
Are they in the parasympathetic or the sympathetic? Are they on the fight or flight? How is their sleep? Do they have a lot of EMF exposure? Are they night owls? I mean, that is such a broad subject and such a great question, Chris. And luckily, it's getting more exposure and more just accepted now.
Attention, yeah.
Right. And part of my protocol, the first R, my 5R protocol, is remove. And that includes removing stress the best you can. Maybe you have to remove the mold that's causing you stress in your environment. Maybe you have to remove that crummy relationship with your friend that's gone south. Maybe you need to figure out things at work so you're not so stressed. I mean, it's not just what's internal. You do end up internalizing it, but you have to also figure out environmental and personal stresses as well. But that's such a great question. And I'm a nutritionist. It's not all about nutrition, hair loss, health in general. You have to address those stressors and the other environmental things and what else is going on in your life. Because at the end of the day, you can't absorb those nutrients if you don't remove them.
Yeah, if you're in the sympathetic state, you're not absorbing the nutrients the way you could. Let's continue to talk about your 5R protocol. So first you said is remove.
Remove, and yeah, that usually takes the longest and it's the most important. And that usually means removing all the other supplements. People come to me on a bazillion supplements. They don't even know why they're taking them, but it's usually a waste of money because they're not absorbing them. So I start from ground zero, and that's when I figure out from these functional labs what else they need to remove. And that's why it can take the longest. And then replace. So that's usually with digestive enzymes to replace, to replenish the gut so you can start just be more revitalized and absorbing and just moving on through reinoculate your gut and your body. And that's usually with prebiotics and probiotics, but it depends. I mean, if they have a bad case of SIBO, you have to be careful about what type of prebiotics and probiotics you give them, because some can make it worse. And same with candida. And I have a lot of women that come to me that have really, really bad candida. So we got to remove that. And we have to be careful about what kind of digestive enzymes we might put them on, or what prebiotics or probiotics, because some make it worse. So, and then repair, and then you get into different nutrients and lifestyle. The lifestyle factors are throughout this. And that's why I try to educate them throughout all these different phases. Because again, it's like if you skip right away to the repair, start giving them L-glutamine and all these gut healing nutrients before you remove all the toxins and stressors, it's like if your house was in a hurricane, right? And it's in shambles, and you start building the framework, but you haven't even finished the framework of the house, right? You start building the framework, and you start moving in the furniture. That's like skipping to the repair before you finish the remove. And I get a lot of clients that they've been to great practitioners, but for whatever reason, they have missed some of the stressors that they need to remove. And they're frustrated because they've spent a lot of time and money, but they've gone too fast. Does that make sense? Is that a good analogy?
No, well, I think they're building to yeah. I like they're moving in the furniture as the framing is almost completed. Yeah, that like you got a lot more work to do. You mentioned SIBO and Candida. Is that are indications of that you find typically from the stool sample that the stool test that you're doing, or is there some other particular test?
Yeah, I find it from the stool test. If it's in the stool test, it's a really bad candida. But I find it in the organic acids. I can find it in
the
a
urine,
nutrient test. I can find it in food sensitivity tests. I can find it in a lot of tests. I can do just a candida test straight up. I also have an extensive questionnaire on it, but I really like to test and not guess. Yeah, and the SIBO, there's a breath test for the SIBO test. But I can also, there's 2 markers on the stool test that shows if they have elevated methane and hydrogen on the stool test.
Okay. And then, so we've got remove, replace, and hopefully we've taken enough time on remove. And so we're talking about replace.
Reinoculate.
All right. Reinoculate.
All that good bacteria back. Repair the gut lining. If you laid out your gut lining to the size of a tennis court, repair and rebalance.
And again, I think these were all on that scientific poster that you did. So that was
my published abstract that was also made into a poster. Yeah.
That's very, very cool stuff. You focus on a number of things on your website, right? So autoimmunity, gut health, gluten sensitivity, celiac, hair loss, weight loss. How do you see these all being interrelated? and then what do you do to kind of go address those? And it's probably the 5 R's, but how do you see those interrelated?
Oh, yeah. So that's a great question. I'll go first with autoimmunity. So there's autoimmune hair loss. It's alopecia areata, alopecia universalis. There's different types of autoimmune hair loss. That's when your body attacks the hair follicles. That's the immune response. So
Mm-hmm.
that's definitely very needed. Um, and then weight loss. Ton of people, when they lose weight the wrong way, they starve themselves, they don't get enough nutrients, what have you, they're going to have major hair loss. It's very, very common. I get a lot of those women too. So yeah, I want to educate people on proper weight loss, because also usually when women go through my program, they lose that stubborn 20 pounds, 10, 20 pounds they've been trying to lose for years, because they get their body back into balance. So yeah, I definitely want to have that weight loss on there. That's why it's relevant. Celiac disease, gluten sensitivity, huge with gut health, hair loss, just health in general. I'm obsessed with that. I also have a huge problem with gluten. I cannot get near it. And that was one of the causes of my hair loss. I didn't realize I had such a bad high gluten sensitivity. I became anemic, even though I was eating everything in sight. I wasn't absorbing my nutrients. So yeah, that's really important. And gut health, yeah. I mean, gut health is the foundation. So that's how they're all interrelated.
So those are all interrelated. Excellent.
Yeah.
I feel like we covered kind of the 4 keys, the 5R protocol. Is there anything else that maybe I missed that you'd like to discuss about kind of hair loss and maybe your approach in general?
I just want to let people know that there's hope, that there's a way to overcome it as long as there's no scarring, and don't let people push you around, because if you're losing more than 125 hairs a day, day after day, week after week, month after month, do something about it. It might not be that noticeable to other people, but it's in the drain, it's on your pillow, it's here, there, it's everywhere. And address it, because you can do something about it before there's scarring. So again, there is an urgency. There is hope. It can be a gift. It can be a gift to address whatever is out of balance. If it's the point where you're losing your hair, there's something, more than one thing is out of balance in your body, and it can save you. As far as the subject of the summit, it can save you so you have better longevity. It's a sign, it's a symptom.
So what would you share about your grandmother, your 104-year-old grandmother? What would you share as maybe a learning, right? So you've got your practice, you understand what's positively impacting the people that you're helping, and then you see her, like where do you see the parallel?
So she cooked. She loved to cook. She cooked. My grandfather had a farm. So she cooked fresh vegetables. He hunted. He hunked elk. He hunked wild game. So she ate a lot of wild game, and
And they probably ate the organs.
Oh yes, she loved liver. She just was celebrating cooking whenever we would come up, or and we'd go to a restaurant. She'd want to know, ask the waiter, like, how did they make that? What was in that? What was that one spice in there? But it just goes back to her daughter. My mother is the one that got breast cancer. So look at the parallel. Is my mother didn't like to cook, ate a lot of fast food, was stressed, was not in a good marriage. She got really, really sick. I mean, she's a breast cancer survivor today, but she changed everything. And my grandmother, she lived 104 on no medications. She only ended up in a home because she did fall and break her hip, but on no medications. And the only reason she passed away is because she decided to stop eating. It was right after her 104th birthday. She's just like, I've had enough. She just stopped eating.
So it sounds like she lived the way, because I've got a couple questions for you here to kind of wrap things up. But one of them, I'll let you answer the question, then I can describe it. So let's get to our wrap up questions. Julie, do you have a target age that you want to live to?
I think it'd be fun to live to 100. I would like to look at my telomeres. I think that we talked to people about that on the summit, looking at the telomeres.
Yeah, no, we've talked about a couple of the longevity tests, and I can share one of them. I have unbelievably phenomenal results, and then the other one, it's interesting. Actually, I didn't have the results when I did the interview. It shows me a little bit older, but I've taken that test twice, and over the course of the last 3 years, my biological age decreased by 1 year. So instead of increasing by 3, I'm 4 in the negative relative to that. So I actually decreased by 1. So yeah, we've had some conversations about that. It's pretty cool stuff. How long do you think humans can live?
I guess I wouldn't say studies per se, but some evidence that people can live to 130. What have you found out?
Yeah, I think that this question is really kind of a two-parter, where we have the state of science today, and then do you believe, and I do actually, that we're going to be able to figure out how to pull all the levers that, and that ultimately that we can live forever. I think that is a possibility. I don't know if that'll happen in my lifetime. I think that would be a number of experts have been like, I wouldn't want to live forever. And I would, I would, I think that would be great. All right. What are 2 to 3 protocols, habits, mindsets? Let's call them shortcuts, because everybody likes shortcuts, that you would share for longevity and or a long health span.
Eat organ meat. Eat organic whole foods. Get good quality sleep, move, and cook. Please cook.
I like that. We haven't gotten that one yet. All right, Julie, how can people contact you?
Probably the easiest is julieolson.com. And that's OLSON. So julieolson.com. That's my website. And then my social media handles, I just put on an FN for functional nutritionist at the end. So Julie Olson FN.
Excellent. And what in the near future are you excited about?
Just my mission to empower women worldwide to restore their health, hope, and hair loss naturally to look and feel their absolute best.
That is awesome. All right. So you can find her at her website, which is julieolson.com, JulieOlson.com, and on Instagram, or I think most of the social medias, it's the same, Julie Olson FN. Julie, this has been a fantastic conversation, and I know we have more to discuss. But thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Live Beyond the Norms podcast. Make sure to subscribe and follow. Also, make sure not to be that guy, the guy sharing this podcast with people who are not interested in living beyond the norms. If you would like to learn more about the ESS60 molecule, the molecule responsible for the single longest longevity experimental result on mammals in history, a full 90% extension of life, visit myvitalc.com. That's myvitalc as in carbon.com.